entrepreneur.
Let's say that again. I will not take no for an answer.
I will not take no for an answer.
Because we are entrepreneurs.
Entrepreneurs.
Isn't that powerful? You got to get through all the no's to get to the yeses as an entrepreneur. Les Brown, again, you heard me make many references and quotes, but Les Brown talks about when he was out selling televisions one day. And he says he was out selling televisions. He said one of the guys, they was knocking on doors, and one of the guys said, man, I'm tired of people telling me no. I'm going home. People are looking at you on live like, who is that lovely young lady? Let me turn it around. It's supposed to be going this way because it's all up on your face. And they're like, what in the world? Who is she, Daryl? I said, that's my new friend. Yeah. But he said, and this guy was like, man, I'm going home. I'm tired of everybody telling me no, I'm leaving. I'm out of this piece. Les Brown said the guy wasn't hungry enough. He said that guy had the comfort of a lifestyle that he could go take advantage of once he left here. I didn't have that. So I had to keep knocking on doors. I had to get through all the no's to get to the yes. See, sometimes you stop when you get to no. But the reality of it is, and I wrote an article a long time ago that was called There's No Traffic at the End of a Traffic Jam. And most of us get on the highway, and when the traffic slow down or stop, we start looking around like, how can I get off the highway? But in reality, there's no traffic at the end of a traffic jam. That's the truth. I wouldn't lie to you. I'll lie for you. Hey guys, Entrepreneur Speaks is about, again, like I said, having entrepreneurs get up and tell their story about how they became an entrepreneur. This is our third year doing it. This year we've been doing it with a twist. What we've been doing is we've been having entrepreneurs come up. We've been having the two entrepreneurs tell their story. And one of the entrepreneurs, what we would do is we would do a fireside chat with them. And every entrepreneur that showed up, they didn't know who was going to do what. They didn't know who was going to be presenting or who was going to be having a fireside chat. So today we're doing, if you guys didn't notice, this is the first day of Small Business Month. So May is Small Business Month. As well as this Military Appreciation Month. So for all my service members, prior service members, if you served in the chair force, we won't hold that against you. Any chair force people in the room?
One. Not there, no chair force in the world I grew up in.
So we want to say first, thank you for your service and what you've done in the country. And if you're a small business owner, thank you for what you've done. It is not easy to wake up and get into this space. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. So before we go, I'm gonna do a fireside chat with my friend Dr. Kishima Garcia. We're gonna do a fireside chat. But before we get up, what I want to do is I want to offer an opportunity for one of you to get up and you tell your story. No different than what you just heard. We want to hear your story and see how we could either and what would happen after you tell your story. The audience has 2 to 3 minutes to ask you any question that's related to your story. So is anybody bold enough and interested enough to say, you know what, I can tell my story in 12 minutes or less?
Can I volunteer somebody since she has to leave here at 4?
Sure. Liza just told you.
Am I telling my story?
Yeah.
I just want to introduce you. This is Miss Martine. She's the VP for Valley Bank. I got her business card, so she has to leave at 4 o'clock. So she has a Zoom. So I just want her to introduce herself.
Please come on up.
Oh, well, thank you for the
Come
opportunity.
on up. Yes.
I was here earlier. I had the opportunity to facilitate
Martine? Hey, Daryl.
to facilitate a workshop to talk about access to capital, but from the mindset.
Over here so the humans can see you.
Sure.
And then you're going to have to take the camera because it's following me. There you go.
Perfect.
Still following you.
It loves you.
I'm going to stand behind you.
Yes. So I had the opportunity to facilitate a class today to talk about access to capital, but from the mindset of a lender. So a few of the attendees are in the room. We had a great time, but I am a banker. I've been banking for over 2 decades, and I have the privilege of working with entrepreneurs and small businesses to offer access to capital, education, and really to demystify what it is to get a business loan. So I actually cover 2 states. I'm from South Florida, so I made the trip just for you, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you. I look forward to hearing the stories.
Okay, bet. Let's let anyone interested in telling their story. If not, I got tons of them. Listen, I'll tell you. And my wife gets highly upset with me. It's following you now, Miss Martine.
It is. It's following.
This thing is sometimes technology is sometimes really stupid. But my wife gets upset with me sometimes because I tell these stories. But it's the story that got us to where we are. And I recall many times, I remember one time in specific, I was working as a janitorial services called Janet King. I had a Janet King franchise. And when I had this franchise, I was billing at about $25,000 a month. Every month. That's good money, $25,000 a month. But every end of the month, I was calling my brother, asking him for $500 to help me pay my rent. Because I had to pay my payroll, I had to pay my franchisee fees, my sales fees. I had to pay all these extra fees and things that I didn't fully realize that was going to be applicable in the franchise ownership. And so I remember walking through this car dealership called Metropolitan Cadillacs. And I'm walking through Metropolitan Cadillac, I'm cleaning it up, I'm doing all janitorial stuff, and I'm hungry. I mentioned the missed meal cramps. That is real. I'm hungry. I ain't got nothing at home to eat because I'm spending all my money on this franchise. So I remember going in their break room, and I open up the refrigerator, and I see in the left-hand corner, I still can vividly see it today. That was over 25 years ago. I can vividly see that box of hot tamales sitting in that refrigerator. And I said to myself, if I come back here tomorrow and that box of hot tamales in there, I'm getting them hot tamales. The next day I came in there with a purpose. It wasn't to clean. It was for looking for those hot tamales. And I went in there, found those hot tamales. I had the little caddy, trash can caddy with the little things around it and everything. I made sure I put those hot tamales in there right up under the trash bags, kind of hid them, went home, and I had dinner. Because again, as I was a struggling entrepreneur, and as you struggle in this space and place, you go through some stuff. But it's those things, it's those stories. I had a young lady came up here maybe 3 months ago. And she stood up here and she said to me, or said to the audience, COVID saved my life. That was strange. COVID saved her life. I said, how did COVID save your life? She said, now here she's standing whole, tall person, stand up in front of us. She said, I've been paralyzed for the past 5 years. And when COVID happened, and as I had been paralyzed, what they learned was the physician and the medical clinic I was going to was treating me with the wrong medication. And because I couldn't go to the medical facility, I started feeling movement in my toes. And then ultimately got out of her paralysis position, and now she lives around the Tampa area somewhere running a business. COVID saved her life. That's a story for your butt right there. Because again, she was lying in the bed in a paralyzed status, and now here she is, COVID saved. When she started off her story saying COVID saved her life, I was shocked. That blew me out the way. I had a young man that stood up before us in tears. The Super Bowl was here how many years ago? 4 years ago? 4 some years ago? This guy was the head security firm downtown at the Super Bowl. Head security firm, large security firm. One day I'm looking on LinkedIn and I recognize a picture of him with furniture in his hand and a moving truck in front of his building. I reach out to him and say, hey bro, what's going on? Why are you moving? He had been taken for thousands and thousands of dollars by an online scammer. They locked up all his accounts payables. He couldn't pay his staff, he couldn't pay himself, and the building that he had that he was running his organization out of, that young man stood before us, and which is why we now make this a more intimate setting, because that young man stood before us in tears and he said to me, Daryl, this feels like an Alcohol Anonymous class. Whereas you can now pour out and share your story and you don't have to worry about being judged. So coming to the stage, coming to the stage, coming to the stage, coming to the stage.
Oh.
Yes. Oh, Thank you. Come on, y'all. Yes. Let's give it up. What's your name?
Chalisa.
Let's give it up to Chalisa. She's gonna tell us her story. Let's give it up to her. There you go.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Chalisa Battle. First and foremost, I'd like to give an honor to God, who's the head of my life, because if it wasn't for him, there would be no me. So I am not a full-time entrepreneur yet, but I do believe that it is my purpose to walk into full-time entrepreneurship. And I will tell you guys my story. So I am 33 years old. I grew up in a single-parent household in West Tampa. My grandparents primarily raised me. I became a parent at the age of 21. I was pregnant on my 21st birthday, and I planned on drinking, and I couldn't. So that's how I remember the first time. Anywho, I was in a domestic violence relationship with my kid's father at the time, to where when I was pregnant with my son, right after having my first child, I went into premature labor. So prior to that, I'm a mother of 3 live children. Prior to that, I was supposed to be a mother of 5 live children. Growing up, no one never told me about hygiene, being feminine, or just anything about being a woman. And so life experiences allowed me to, teach myself as I thought. And I got pregnant, I believe, around 18, 19 years old. And me and my mother lived together, but, we didn't have a relationship. And so I ended up getting pregnant at the time. And the guy who I got pregnant from didn't want a baby. So, I was afraid to call my parents, afraid to talk to whoever. So I ended up getting an abortion. And when I got an abortion, I felt like a mass murderer. Here I am running around in the streets thinking I'm having my way, but really trying to run away from my trauma instead of heal from it, ending up getting pregnant and having an abortion. I felt so bad to the point to where I intentionally got pregnant again, to basically, I guess, soothe the pain that I was feeling from having an abortion. So when I got pregnant again, I hid my pregnancy from everybody, because this time I'm going to go through with it and nobody's going to be able to take my baby. Well, Lord and behold, I ended up getting probably to 6 months, and I started cramping really bad. And although I may be small now to some people, I was even smaller back then, so I hid it better, so nobody knew I was pregnant. And I started having these cramps and pains, and it was really bad. So I lied and told my mom my period was coming. Oops, sorry if that's too graphic. But I lied and told my mom it was that time of the month, and I needed to go to the hospital. Well, by the time they got me to the hospital, my baby was in my lap, and I had my child in my lap, and my baby basically passed away. So at that point, I would call on the name of God, but I really didn't know him. It was just something that we sometimes say in certain households. So I was like, God, I promise you, if you give me 2 kids, I promise the promises we make them. I ended up having 2 kids back to back, Marley and Terry. And when I had my 2 kids, I still didn't fully commit my life to God, but it saved me. And this is the reason why, because I begged the God who was so sovereign and knew me by name, yet and still I was not purposeful enough to care for something so precious that he allowed me to birth in the earth. So I say that to say, I had those 2 kids, Marley and Terry, was in a domestic violence relationship. And through that, I became a fighter/survivor. And I put pressure on my kids by basically doing it for them instead of doing it for me, so that they know that they too can walk after I run. So I go through these processes, and I go through several nonprofits that come and tell your story, and we'll give you $750 to move, and the little transportation, things like that. So I go to these people's stories, and I tell my story. They get richer, and not only I'm still in poverty physically and financially, but mentally as well. And so I started to work for people. It was never hard for me to get a job and grow and develop in that job. But I will always grow the company just enough to where when they use me for what they wanted, they will let me go. And so the last position that I got, I was an executive assistant for a private guardian who was a millionaire. I was an investigator for the state of Florida, and I got a case on her who she was being accused of neglecting one of her wards for the state. Normally the state gives us 60 days to solve their case. I solved it in 48 hours. to the point to where she asked me, she was like, you're so good at what you do. What would you, would you want to be a private guardian for the state? So I'm like, well, the state ain't paying nothing anyway, so, I might as well. So I prayed, I fasted, and I believe that that's what God wanted me to do because I'm always helping and always growing other people's businesses. Well, I fast forward to this position as an executive assistant, and I asked her, I said, what's the catch? Because growing up where I'm coming from, people don't give you anything. So I'm like, well, what's the catch? Why do you want to give me your business that you built from the ground up for 15 years? She was like, well, I'm 63 years old. I've had all these different type of cancers and sickness and whatnot. And I just, she was like, and I was like, listen, I got student loan debt. I got credit. I got all debt that you can think of. But nobody never taught me anything. And I told her, I was very specific. I said, God is my provider. But I want to make for sure that whatever risk I take it knowing that it's not just me taking the risk, it's my kids taking the risk as well. So she was like, I'll have money, I'll help you pay your debt and everything like this. So a part of me was, convinced, and another part of me was still unsure because of always having to do things for myself. So I eventually ended up going through with the position. Within a week, I managed over $100 million in her brokerage accounts. I was able to get the data entry set, Microsoft Excel, you name it. And I was doing things so well it intimidated her that someone with my upbringing could do such things. And so she would make certain slight comments in the office on, hey, they overpaid us $98,000. What can you do with that? But I understand that wherever you go, there you are. So I couldn't allow the remarks to dim my light or, make me feel whatever type of way. And so I would never public speak. I will always work in the background, just be a servant. So this is all, new for me, but why not? And so make a long story short, she ended up contacting her attorney. And her attorney told her that if they were to ever submit my resume with my credit profile, then they will completely deny me and shut down my business. So she let me go. So when she let me go, catch me a couple years ago, I would have had some words and probably ham and cheese for her. But honestly, I realized that it's not by coincidence that a lot of people don't realize when they have a blessing in their disguise. And so I didn't allow rejection to make me feel like I'm unworthy or whatever. I was like, God, you put me in a room that I didn't apply for nor qualify for, keys in hand, credit cards, with all of my debt, and I didn't steal $1 over dealing with $100 million. So there must be something on the inside of me that you can trust me with, that whatever. And so, right now I'm a current full-time student at USF. And before I step back into the career market, I just want to trust God with the woman's womb. Because a woman's womb for me is not just a sad victim mentality. It's making sure that we take care of everything that God has birthed on the inside of us. And men have wombs as well. They just don't physically give birth. And so for me, a woman's womb is going to help the person that didn't know their, hygiene, that didn't know financial literacy, but let them know that just because they didn't know it before doesn't mean that they can't set themselves up to break generational curses and cross barriers. And that you are welcome in rooms where your kind or your type may not ever be fitted. And it's not a race thing, it's a mentality thing and an identity in who you are in Jesus Christ. So for me, a woman's womb means me breaking the barriers and taking care of my womb so that I can help other women and other men give birth.
Yeah.
They got 2 to 3 minutes of questions and answers. Anybody got any questions for her? Anybody got any questions?
So, before you technically applied for the role, you did disclose your credit information. So,
yes.
I know some jobs will hire you because
yes.
of your credit, but that was never part of the initial onboarding. So how could they use that against you?
Well, before, in order to be a guardian for the state, you have to have credit because they trust you with everything. A private guardian is literally higher than a birth parent. Once you become a private guardian, you literally have rights, court-appointed rights to that individual, whether it's a child or an adult. So prior to me accepting her contract, I physically printed out my credit report to let her know that if you're taking a risk on me, I want you to know what type of risk you're getting into yourself. Mm-hmm. And she assured me, she was like, I just know that you'll take care of my patients the way that I take care of them. She agreed to, and I don't want anyone to have a negative taste about her, because that's not my intention. Right. But basically she agreed to pay off my credit for, she agreed to, do certain things because she's well off. She's like, I'm 63. I can't do this forever. You're young, whatever. So there was an agreement of her willing to pay off certain things. And for me, what I believe that she was doing is because she started giving me access as an authorized user on my credit to help boost it while I'm working on certain things. And I believe what ended up happening was she talked to someone and, fell in the vainglory of things, and she basically backed out on what she said that she was going to do. But even though she knew what risk that she was taking, you can be an entrepreneur and still be afraid to take risks.
Yeah.
So I just believe that she's not in a mindset to where she has been exposed to people of integrity, because sometimes entrepreneurs can get taken advantage of. People can steal from them. And even though I didn't do any of those things, I just, learned to accept that if God closes a door, it was never meant for you to be there full term anyway. But I did learn a lot while I was there. Mm-hmm. I got access to things that no one in my bloodline ever got access to, mm-hmm. and I operated in integrity. I didn't have to steal, kill, or lie to get to that into that door. So there's no telling what other doors will come from that. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you for telling your story. I really admire your transparency.
Oh, thank you.
So my question is, I heard you say a woman's womb.
A womb.
Is that part of your business? I didn't understand what type of business you plan to start.
Yeah, so my goal is to start a nonprofit for women. So that is a part of it. And in a woman's womb, the idea of it, a womb as we know it, a lot of people just internalize it or look at it as a physical womb when a woman is pregnant. But that is actually a mindset. It's everything that is inside of you that has to give birth. And if you don't take care of that thing, you can either give birth to it prematurely, it can die. You don't know how to nurture your mind, your heart, and your spirit, and those things can come collapsing. So for me, my idea as the entrepreneur is to allow the full 360 of an individual to give birth to whatever that is, even if it's just them getting a peace of mind from their trauma, but to not have them come into my nonprofit and go out the same way that they came in. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
Let's answer one more question.
I heard you say you're going to school. What are you?
Yes. So right now I'm in school for public health. I'm getting my second bachelor's in public health. The reason why I actually signed up to go to school again was to substantiate income that I lost. But at the time as well, the state was paying for my tuition, so I'm like, I might as well take advantage of it. Work with what you got to get what you need.
Not a question, more of a comment.
Yes.
I want to commend you for your strength.
Thank you.
This is very heartwarming and heart-touching and everything. I want to tell you that you got friends who are all pulling for you.
Thank you.
I just want you to know that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That was not easy. And it's not easy to get up here. She don't know us from anywhere. She just met us and getting up and sharing her story. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm honored to have now got to know you a little bit better.
Yes.
She did explain to me about the woman's wound and her objective on starting at 501c3 and getting that started. Whatever this circle can help you out with and getting that, bringing that to pass, we stand by.
Hey,
So thank you.
Okay.
So coming to the stage, Dr. Kishima Garcia, she and I met 3 years ago. It's been 3 years. It's been that long?
3 years, yeah.
Wow, it's been 3 years. I show up at MacDill Air Force Base and I got my name on the seat. Like I got a seat with my name on. I'm like a VIP type of dude. I'm like, wow, me? So I sit in my little seat and the event ends and I had heard about her joining this organization called Action Zone as being a board member with Action Zone, which is an entrepreneurship organization that helps service members. And I heard about it. I'm like, you know what, I got to meet with her. So she's at this event. We lock eyes. Let's talk. Walked over to her office with her over on MacDill Air Force Base. I must say we may have stayed in there talking for probably 2.5, almost 3 hours on the first time we met. And yesterday I made a statement. I made a post on Facebook. And I asked this question. Who's calling and checking on you? Who's picking up the phone and calling and asking you how are you doing and being intentional about that request? Who's doing that? On the same token, who are you picking up the phone and calling and checking on? Since she and I met way back when, we already know, and there's someone else in the room, Lauren's in the room, me and Lauren, we do this as well. We always pick up the phone and just have this, I don't want nothing, just call and see how you was doing. And needless to say, an hour and a half to 2 hours later, we're getting off the phone. But I made that post yesterday on Facebook asking who's checking on you. And so yesterday I said, you know what? Let's do a fireside chat. Let's sit down and talk and let's share, because this entrepreneurial journey, let's share what we've been through. Let's have a conversation. And so coming to the stage, my friend, Dr. Kishima Garcia. You can sit wherever you want. I'm gonna have to adjust this thing or stop it from spinning because it's making me feel like I've been drinking. We're gonna put it in. It's got to capture both of us. Kishima.
Right here?
Right here?
Yeah.
Move it back.
Right there?
Right there? Is that
Let me
good?
see.
You're out of the camera now.
If you come.
That was my intent.
Oh, that was
No.
okay. If you move it
Now,
to
would you like me to match
Unless
it?
you want to sit it here.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
you go. Put it right there. I was like, what are they doing, man? This dude ain't got
Can you see?
technology.
That's perfect.
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay.
That's it. Those,
Just a smidge to the, there you go.
Okay.
there you go.
Can you see? Okay, sit back down.
There we go.
Okay.
There we go. We good now. Hey, Kishima.
Hi, Daryl.
What is happening? So again, Kishima roll over at the base. Now, we're not going to make this thing in no shape, form, fashion, political. But I have to first of all explain to you what her role was and is on the base. Was on the base. She was the person that was over DEI for the base. Needless, do I need to say any more as to what happened with the new administration and their rollback on that? But I don't want to talk about that. What I want to ask you and bring to a conversation of how has that experience propelled you to begin looking closer and closer at your entrepreneurial journey? And talk about the fact of how, you know, in entrepreneurship, a lot of entrepreneurship opportunities come out of losing employment. So go right ahead.
I'll actually take a couple more steps back. So that's when Daryl met me, right? So prior to working on the installation, I was actually working for a private organization as the executive vice president doing human capital strategy. And what was so wonderful about the company is I got to be around an entrepreneur, I got to see everything, I got to be in the rooms, I got to see how they were building things, and it was like, man, this is awesome. What was so cool about it was when I joined the organization, they took a chance on me. They had 6 overhead employees, and they had other individuals that were out in the community doing billable work, right? It was about total 26 employees. With my joining the company, we acquired 2 other companies, and then we also grew to over 300 people having contracts and business in several different locations, about 5-6 different states. One day, I had about a staff overseeing human resources, our marketing team, our recruiting department, and our IT infrastructure. All that didn't exist when I first got there. You can imagine. And I just happened to walk out of my office, and it's like I got bombarded by a group of women in my office. And it came out of nowhere. We're having a water cooler conversation. They said, Kishima, I just don't feel like you are using your platform appropriately. And I was like, what do you mean? And they said, we think that you can do so much more. The position that you're in, the voice that you have, the things that you do, but you're not using your platform appropriately. So one of the things that I was thankful for was, one, for these ladies to entrust in me, because they worked for me, to feel like they could pull me to the side and have this conversation. Not only that, after we left, we talked a little bit more, but after we left the conversation, they also looked into their resources and they said, hey, let's get you in certain rooms and make sure, I mean, I had marketing on my team, right? Let's make sure we get you in certain rooms and I guess get you in certain places. And then the CEO and also the COO was also on board with that. And I want to say that that started my journey of taking myself a little bit more seriously. I was in a role that I thought, well, I mean, I'm doing good. You know, I'm making money. I am doing what I need to do, responsibility-wise. But the truth is that that was for the company. And I didn't take myself as an individual, myself as a stable in a company per se, as an impact in my community or the world that I lived in per se. I was just trying to make my money, make sure that everybody else was good, go home, take care of my kids and my family. After that, I had a discussion with my COO who was getting his doctorate degree. And we were on our way to lunch, and he said, hey, yeah, you know, this is all the stuff that I go on. And I made a comment, and I said, you know, I've always wanted to get my doctorate degree. This is 4 years later, and I got it. Right? I'm actually walking next week. So I completed my doctorate in November, but from that conversation, it blew up into something else. That was another step in my journey to take myself a little bit more seriously. So now you said something and you put it in the universe and someone says, this is what you want to do, I can help you. I didn't have one person, I had two. My problem at the time was I didn't always have an ask. There were people who were around me who wanted to help, but I always thought I didn't want to be a burden on them. So I'm not going to ask you because I don't want you to feel like I want something from you. But then what I realized shortly after that is that people who are in your circle, people who are part of your tribe, they will help you. And sometimes you don't have to ask. Sometimes you just have to say, this is what I want to do. And then they'll ask you, how can I help? And that's what happens.
Tribe. Man, you used that word tribe. You and I both transplants here to Tampa. Fortunately, we got some people that are from Tampa in the room. I was shocked to learn that they're
That's
real
so
Tampanians.
crazy.
Right.
To know that.
Right. It's rare that you meet real Tampanians, and so they're here. They're alive. They're in this room. But to that point, we were talking about that yesterday. We was talking about tribes.
Right.
We was talking about tribes.
Right. And so, you know, so the previous organization that I worked for actually made us read this book for our executive team. It's called Smart Tribes. And the idea was actually how can you make your team start, you know, to work a little bit more efficiently, kind of going off each other's strength. So reading that book, I mean, obviously you get something out of it, not just for your business, but also for yourself. And I realized, like, man, like, I got a lot of people that are in my tribe. Now, I use that analogy to say that not everybody in my tribe I'm going to call on when I need something. And like Darryl was saying earlier, there are going to be times where my husband is not the person I'm going to call, right? That my sisters or my best friend, she might not be the person I call. I might call Darryl because Darryl's going to give me that energy that I need. Because, you know, you heard him earlier, he's a generator. Right? And I might need that. I might be at my low point today and I just need the right push, the right energy. I have a girlfriend. She lives in Maryland. I call her and, I mean, I remember there was one time I was going to go give a speech. I had a speaking event and I was a little bit nervous. I was meeting with a very top official to do a briefing on something that I was doing, an initiative that I had. And I called her about 10 minutes before I go, and I said, girl, I'm a little nervous right now. She said, Diva, do I need to pull your resume, right? And that was just the energy that I needed. Sometimes there's gonna be somebody that I just need you to listen. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's gonna be someone who you might need to listen to. That's gonna tell you some things that you need to hear. Mm-hmm. Not the things that you want to hear, the things that you need to hear. And I'm thankful for having those people in my tribe because they all serve a purpose, but they don't all serve the purpose at the same time.
Right. So we was talking about that. We was talking about being transplants here. We had the awesome opportunity to pick who we wanted to be on our team. I was saying the other day, I said the draft just took place. And our cell phones, in so many words, is our draft field. Who are you calling on when it's time to do a handoff? Who are you calling on when it's time to kick the ball off to someone? Who are you calling? Who's the person you calling up for that play? Because we carry this thing around with us all the time, and as I stated earlier, I will go through my phone sometime and I'll look for, okay, and depending on what I'm in, what my mode or what my mindset may be in, it's who am I going to call? And then in the entrepreneurial space, you begin to realize that circle gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. I often talk about the Dallas Cowboys and how they are known as America's team. Well, I believe that they are America's team not because of their football team. I say it's because of their cheerleaders. Because it's the cheerleaders that get you over the hump. It's the cheerleaders that get you over to that goal line defense, and when everything about life is coming at you, who's sitting there saying, my friend here, his name is Mario, who's sitting there saying, go Mario, go, go Mario, go? Because Mario is being just hit, and you watch football, you see when they get that goal line defense, they got the biggest guys, they calling the big dudes, and it's the cheerleaders that is pushing Mario through. So my question to you, my friend, is tell us about your cheerleaders.
I got some pretty big hitters on my side, and they got pom-poms that they just walk around with all the time. So like I said, I have different individuals that are in my tribe. So like Darryl was saying, when we first met, it was through the link of a nonprofit organization in which I sit on the board of now, called Action Zone. And I actually, when I was considering transitioning from the company that I worked for at the time, this is before I took the other job that Darryl mentioned, I called her. I didn't know her. I didn't know Valerie. But I had seen her in different spaces that we had been in together. One of the things that I appreciate about the Tampa area is that I believe it's a small town in a big city, right? And so the majority of the people who I've called or who have called me, I've never said no. No one has ever said no, we can't get coffee. They might say, I can't do it today, can we do it another day? But they've always made time, and I appreciate that. So Valerie made time for me. And we went over on International Drive, and we sat down for some appetizers and libations, right? And we talked about what my goal was. She had one simple thing. We talked about everything. And then at the end, she said, so now how can I help you? And I said, well, my ask all the time, right, is I need you to keep me straight. This is what I want to do. I want to open a business. I wanted to, do these things. This is the focus that I want to do. And it was about human capital. I wanted to do consulting. I was like, because I know I'm good at it. Proven. Name on the building. I did that, right? And she goes, all right, I want you to come to my my cohort for Action Zone. I really think that you're gonna have that. So I just want to go back. I didn't know her. I saw her in different spaces, and I just happened to give her a phone call. I must have reached out to her on LinkedIn or something like that, and she said, absolutely, let's go ahead and grab coffee, right? And so, well, I said coffee, but it's not coffee. And so anyway, I went through the program, and I realized as much as you do it for other people, when you're doing it for yourself, it's so hard. And I realized that was not the business that I actually wanted. I could do these things, but that's not what I want. Going through the program actually helped me shift my priorities to the values that I hold. And I said, what a world when I had to step back and sit down and say, is this the business that I actually wanted? Now, one thing that you probably will figure out is when you have a business and you just become a serial business entrepreneur, like you out there, you just have all kinds of businesses now. And so then I went to my husband, another person in my tribe, right? And I had long wanted to do some investments. And I said, hey, I really think we should invest in some properties. And he didn't think it was a good idea a couple years before, when the market was a lot cheaper than what it is today. But then this time, he was like, that's a great idea. And I said, okay. Now I am like, at this moment, I have the capital, but I don't have the time because I'm still working. But he has the time, and he has the opportunity because he is not me. He's very focused. He's more of an introvert, but I mean, if you want something researched and done, he is the man to do it, right? He compliments me. So because of that, we were able to establish our business, right? Which is Kilo Golf Investments, and we have long-term and short-term properties, which I think within 2 years of having the business, we ended up investing in 7 different properties. This is not 2 years now, this is later, but 7 properties that are both short-term and long-term in places that we like to travel. So first of all, my point of saying that, because I don't want to get too far away from the question, is a lot of the times the people that you need are right there in your circle. You just have to have an ask.
You said something that I want to bring reference to, and there's a book that's called Never Eat Alone. When you go out and you're in the thing that you do, call someone and sit down and have one person. Never eat alone. Never go about this thing by yourself. You never know. I think it was Zig Ziglar said that poor people need to invite rich people to dinner and just sit there and listen. Don't even say nothing. Just sit there and listen. Just sit there and listen. I was telling Kishima yesterday about a meeting I had with the gentleman. I won't disclose his name, but we met at a restaurant here in Tampa. Got there, pulled up over there. I was like, where in the holy world are we at? I'm like, this ain't welcoming.
Where was it?
On Del Mabry. And I was like, this is not welcoming. So I go in, he's sitting at the table, and I'm watching him, and I'm watching around, and he said, okay, let's talk. We started having breakfast. He said, order what you want to order. First thing I asked, I said, why are we here? And this is what he said. He said, you see that guy that just walked out the door there? That's Mr. Sykes. His name is on the building downtown. He said, you see those 3 guys that's sitting back there? Each one of those guys back there have a jet at Tampa International Airport. And then he was talking about those other individuals. He said that we come here so we're not in the spotlight and people don't know who we are. And I was like, whoa, that was pretty deep. So picking your circle, picking your team, picking who you want in your draft league. Who do you want in your draft league? Let me ask you a question about women, though, because I know you have a passion toward women, and you have, when I was sharing with her about being Dr. Kishima, you didn't know this is her when I was saying it. Tell us about your women's organization.
So I have 3 focuses in my life, because remember we talked about, instead of just doing something that you're good at, and Darryl did a wonderful job explaining that you're not your resume, right? That your past jobs that you've done. So I wanted to focus on things that bring value to me, that fill my cup. And the 3 things that bring value to me are women, whether it's assisting women in their careers or even when it comes to entrepreneurship. Of course, veterans, which is, why, I kind of align myself with organizations that focus on veterans, and the other one is kids. Of course, all kids, because youth are our future, and we're not raising kids, we're raising kids to be adults. But I have 2 little girls, and so one day my little girls are going to be women, and I want to be able to assist with that. Now, last year I was so graciously nominated and got into as a finalist to Tampa Bay Business Women Who Win, and the idea of that is, how can we make sure women who win are always making sure we promote, we lift up other women, because I'm not out here by myself right? And sometimes we can give each other compliments, and sometimes we can help keep each other straight, and sometimes we can have those kind of conversations that maybe back in the day wasn't as cliche, or was worse than cliche to say, okay, I had my period, or whatever the case is. Those conversations were not normalized. But today, we're gonna go ahead and start breaking those barriers and say, no, as women, we need to be a little bit more understanding that we are going to go through some things, and it makes it that much more harder to have those conversations when you think someone's going to look at you and say, you just don't have the class because of how you talk or the things you talk about. No, let's go ahead and break that barrier and have those conversations now. So my focus, especially as a woman, even though I do, consulting and I'm also a coach, right? Because women, remember I told you my first story, pulled me to the side and said, Kishima, you are not where you need to be. Go ahead and move.
And that's a good point. I tell people all the time, you're not a tree. You can always move.
Right.
You're not a tree. We sometimes believe that where we are is where we're supposed to be. No, you can move. You can move. You can go do that next thing. Tell us 3 words that define you.
See that? We didn't have that question.
We had it. That was that curve. 3 words that define you. And watch this. Of the 3 words, which one shows up with you no matter where you are? And I want you guys to think about that yourself. As she answers, I'm talking to you guys now so she can be thinking about it, but I want you to think about that. What's 3 words that define you? And of those 3 words, which one of those words show up no matter where you are? You can look at these 3 words from the perspective of from my business. What are my 3 words that define me as a business person? Or what are my 3 words that define me as an individual? You think about that as I throw the ball back over there at you.
So thank you. So 3 words that I would define myself at is 1, being approachable. One of the things that I realized, we see people and go, man, like, it's so hard to go out and talk to them, right? Because now they have this title in front of their name or this title behind of their name, and you go, I don't know if I should talk to them. So one thing that I always try to be is approachable, because it's important to me, because I want people to be able to approach me so we can have conversations. The second word that I think about is being self-aware. So I am very self-aware of how I show up into the room. I try to be more aware of myself, so then I can gauge how I'm relating with other individuals. That's important. So I know that if Darryl and I, we talked yesterday, I don't like to be told no.
Same.
Right. So that was one of the things that actually helped me kind of take a step back from when I said, okay, I want to do this, human capital consultant business. This is what I'm going to do. And I realized real quick that business development, which is about going to be 7% of that work right there, because you got to go out, you got to talk to people. You're going to be told no a lot. And I didn't want to be told no. So I had to not change the concept, but change how I get there. Right, and I was able to do that. Right, because I like to, before my husband used to say that I say yes all the time, so I had to be aware more of my time and manage it better. And so my concept now is, how do I get to the yes? And sometimes getting to that yes does not involve me. That may involve me connecting you with someone else. So approachable, self-aware, honest. My honesty also comes with a level of respect. So something that I've learned throughout my career is that everyone should have a sense of dignity when they walk out of the room, just in general. So I try to make sure that I'm being honest. Now, I need you to know these things, but I don't have to humiliate you to get there. I don't have to make you feel less than to get there. But I do have to be honest with you, because if I want you to win, because I want to be your biggest cheerleader, and I don't even care who you are. If I meet you on the street, I'm going to give you a hug if you need a hug, right? But if I'm going to be your biggest cheerleader, I got to be honest with you.
Of the 3, which one of those words show up when you're in the Walmart line and you're about to check out and it's a long line and they turn the light off and the cashier say, I'll be back?
Self-aware. I gotta be self-aware, because just like you, my energy, if I am not self-aware, can transfer to other people. That's the good and the bad, right? And so I try to be the person that is going to transfer positive energy because I know it's going to cause a ripple effect. Because of that, it makes it so much more easier to deal with adversity, and so much easier for people who are in my circle and who are around me on a consistent basis, and even those who are in front of me or behind me in that same Walmart line, to change their attitudes because I'm self-aware and I just help to impact you one way or another.
So it's interesting you should say that. Basically, and we talked about this yesterday, I think I made a post about this today. There's a gentleman by the name of Damon West. Damon West wrote a book called The Coffee Bean. Have anybody heard the coffee bean story before? So the coffee bean, what happened with Damon West? Damon was, he was a D1 football athlete in Dallas. Had a scholarship to go play football. He got injured. When he got injured, he started working on the stock floor. He started doing stock sales and investments. And Damon said one day he went to work and he fell asleep at his desk. Coworker came up to him and the coworker said, "Hey man, they'll fire you if they find you sleep here. Come with me." He goes out to the parking garage with the guy. The guy gives him some type of drug. Damon is on fire. He's wired up. He's good to go. And from that one hit, Damon said he is now searching for that hit all the time. He's looking for it in the daylight with a flashlight. To the fact that they became known in the Dallas area as the Uptown Burglars. He said him and his gang was burglarizing burglarizing people's homes, stealing their goods so they can buy their drugs so they can get that high back. Damon realized one day in his house, he wake up to the barrel of a gun pointed at him. Police officers, SWAT team, knees in his chest. "You better not move." He told the story as I heard him tell. He said, "I wasn't gonna move." But nonetheless, he gets sentenced to 65 years in prison. 65 years in prison. He said he's in court. Judge told him, "You got 65 years in prison." He said his mother told him, "Well, Damon, you're going to have to pay your debt to society. And the one way I want you to pay your debt to society and to me as your mother is you're not going to get any tattoos on your body. Don't get any tattoos on your body when you go to prison." He said he was sitting in the county jail, and as he was sitting in the county jail, he started asking people, "Hey, what do I do when I get to prison? What do I do when I get to prison to survive these 65 years?" He said people kept telling him, "You got to join the gang. You got to join the gang." He said everyone would tell me he need to join the gang. He met this one guy by the name of Muhammad, and Muhammad told him, black guy, Muslim guy, Muhammad told him, "Well, I heard you going around the county asking everybody what you need to do to when you get to the prison." And he said, "Let me tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a story about a carrot, an egg, and a coffee bean. If you put a carrot in hot water, what happens to the carrot? Anybody? It gets soft. If you put an egg in hot water, what happens to the egg?
Hard.
It gets hard. If you put a coffee bean in hot water, what happens to the water?
Turns brown.
It turns brown." Muhammad told him, as to your message or what you're saying, transform the people in the line around you. Muhammad told him, when you get to prison, you're going to fight, and you're going to fight every day. But when you fight, don't become the carrot and become soft and just give up on life and throw yourself away. He said, when you get to prison, you're going to fight, and you're going to fight every day. Don't get to prison and turn your heart hard toward humanity and toward mankind. He said, but when you get to prison, be the coffee bean and transform everyone around you. Transform everyone around you. And so he said he went to prison. And while he was in prison in his 7th year, he get a phone call from the warden to meet him that he had a visitor. He goes to meet the visitor. It's the probation officer. Probation officer comes and they start talking with him. They say, we got one question for you. The one question we have for you is, why should we let you go? We've read your record. We've seen the things you're doing in prison. Why should we let you go? You got one word that you can answer this question with. And he said, useful. They let him out of prison in 7 years.
Wow.
Let him out of prison in 7 years. Now, he said on the stage, when I was in Texas, he said on the stage, I still got 43 years of probation. But he was useful. He transformed people around. So as your entrepreneur and you're doing the things that you do, who's transforming around you? I spoke today and I was talking about, and I'm going to ask you this as well. What are you doing to password protect your joy? When circumstances and all kind of craziness come at you, and remember, I know I went to school in East St. Louis, Illinois, and with that, I know that when we used to have our little combination lock, when we used to sit at the locker, we would cover it up to make sure nobody could get in our locker when we went to. What are you doing to password protect your joy? To make sure that no one picks your lock? What are you doing to password protect your joy?
So we talk about being self-aware again. So my concept is leave where you're planted. And so you can't really control a lot of people around you, but there's two things that you will always have. You will always, well, especially when you're younger, and usually I was at the time either the youngest person in the room, and obviously, you know, let's just say one of the more diverse people in the room at the level that I was at the time. And so the idea is, you know, you're leading where you're planting, not really focus on anybody else, but focus on you, focus on your growth, focus on how you show up in the world, focus on what your goals are, what your values are. Let that be your foundation, you know, in the midst to other things religious wise, but also what are you doing it for? That was one of the things that kind of helped me start on this entrepreneurial journey, is because I told my husband at the time, at the time he's still my husband. I told my husband that I don't want to have to work for someone forever, right? Because at some point, I want to be able to show up for myself and have time for my family. There have been countless people in history who have done a lot of great things in public. And the public will say amazing things, but when you go home, what do their families say? I got the rest of them. I got the leftovers, right? Because they woke up and they got dressed and they were doing all of the things for everyone else, and they came home, and when they took their clothes off and when they lay down, they were so tired they could not give their family the energy that they needed. And so my idea is every room, including my rooms at home that I show up in, I am leading there. I am a mom, right? I am a wife. I am a friend. So when my friend calls me and don't need nothing, somewhere along the line, we find out that there was a reason why you did call, and maybe you needed a push. And my goal is to lead where I'm planted. And so I password protect my energy because I want to have just enough to give you, because I want to pour into other people. You cannot pour from empty cups. So I'm very secure about the people who I have around me that pour into me, because my cup runneth over. I want to pour into you. I cannot pour from an empty cup.
Wow, she said a mouthful. Questions?
Well, Daryl, you are an entrepreneur as well. So what have you password protected?
So I asked you guys about 3 words. And my 3 words for the last 7 years, believe it or not, and if you're with me at 9:30 in the morning, you'll see my alarm goes off and 3 words go off, and they're caring, understanding, and reasonable. And I say those words out loud, or either I say them to myself, no matter where I'm at. And it's been on my phone for the last 7 years. So my password protection is understanding, and that's my word that I go with no matter where I'm at. I'm the guy who can understand why this police officer is chasing this criminal. I try my best to understand that. The Bible says, in all thy getting, get an understanding. So although I may not fully get there, but I try my best to get an understanding, because that's me leaning into the circumstances, me leaning into the situation. So I try to get an understanding of various things, and it's kind of tough. And I remember one time I was reading an article about criminal activity, and they were saying the conversation about black on black crime, white on white crime, and then they were stating, this article was stating to the fact that crime is only proportionate to the community and the environment that it's in. So if you see one black guy and another black guy, and one shoots the other at the grocery store, it's based upon their environment. One was needing Maslow's hierarchy needs: food, clothing, and shelter. So it ain't that one crime is happening more or less in the other culture perspective, but it's proportionate to where you are. And I'm the guy who tries to get that understanding. I'm seeking that understanding, and I use that understanding metaphor to password protect my joy, as well as I watch who I hang around. I got my guys who I smoke a cigar with, but I also have people who I call upon, like yourself, when I'm trying to do some move in a business acumen in different spaces like that.
I don't smoke cigars.
Yes,
Is it okay if we open the floor to
Sure.
the audience to
Yes.
see what
Yes.
questions they may have?
Is your family from the islands?
Yes, I'm originally from the U.S. Virgin Islands, born and raised, and then I had joined the Air Force from there. My parents are originally from St. Kitts, so lots of West Indian background there.
I heard a little bit of it come out. My family's from Jamaica. So.
Oh, yeah, I can't
Right.
help it. I can't.
Yeah.
My accent is just there.
Yeah, we're like cultural cousins. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Anyone?
I've had problems in the past struggling with asking for
Mm.
things.
Mhm.
So I've had some really huge resources around me, from Shaquille O'Neal to some major people, but I never wanted them to feel like I wanted something from them. So I would just engage with them on a friendship level. But I regretted that because some of those, relationships are no longer there. And then, so when you talked about ask, like, where do you find comfort in knowing how to ask, or how do you go about that?
It's a great question. I actually try my best not to ask. When you meet someone, they say, "Tell me what you've been up to." That's a great opportunity for you to say some of the goals that you're working on and some of the things that you are trying to get done, right? So right now I am building a website, for example. I'm so excited because I just recently was able to launch my website, and this is going to be the focus areas on these things, and I'm just like super excited. People just naturally, now you just turn the ask around, right? Man, I didn't know you was doing that. I got a guy. And it sounds like, based off of the stuff that you're doing, that I might be able to help. So now it's, how do we get to that yes? I do agree with you, because I'm still sensitive about it, because a lot of the times, I have people who come to me and they haven't asked him. I'll tell you right now, I personally find it difficult to help people that don't take the time to build a relationship.
Right.
So I want to jump in on that because it is about relationship.
Right.
The gentleman who I told you I met at the restaurant, when I came in, I told you guys he was sitting at the table. When I came in there and he was sitting at the table, he wasn't just sitting at the table. You know what he was doing? And I do this now. He was sitting at the table, handwriting cards and mailing them to people all across the country. And he said to me, Daryl, he said, you know why you're not getting where you need to go? He said, because you keep sending people emails. He said, think about it. He said, emails are the last thing they're going to read. And then he gave me an example. He said, think about this. When you go to your mailbox, I want each one of you guys to think about this, and especially think about it around the holiday season, Christmas and stuff like that. Think about this. When you go to your mailbox, you got a hard 4-cornered letter in the mail. You got your utility bill, and you got the car advertisement, and the bank, and the lawn dude, and all them folk. That piece is in, all that's in your mailbox. Which one do you open up first? Do you open up that letter that is handwritten the address is handwritten and 2 is handwritten, which one do you open up first? You ain't got an answer. You open that card. He told me about that, and he said, start sending cards. Don't send no more thank you emails, anything. And so I went out and I purchased. I got a box of cards, and when I meet someone, she's gonna receive a card. I promise you. She's gonna receive a handwritten card. I wrote a handwritten card to the chief of police. He called me. Daryl, I got your card, man, in the mail. Man, that was good. The Chief Justice at the courthouse met him at an event. He gave me his business card. He got a card. He called me. Daryl, if there's anything, relationship. It's about relationship. Don't send nobody else no more emails. Send them a card in the mail. Send them to their home address. Send it to their home address. It's about knowing people. If you don't know, you said Shaquille O'Neal. And I know this about Mario. He's a musician. He's a national musician. But what's Shaquille's birthday? What's his wife's birthday? When's his kids graduating from high school? To know someone is to have a relationship with them. And that's what moves the needle. Who do you know that you're trying to do business with?
And just to kind of circle back on that to support it even more, I remember I started out when I tell you some of my 3 focus areas. So if there was something that had to do with women, kids, or veterans, you'd be like, man, that falls into Kishima's wheelhouse. Not just because I do things for them, but in those avenues is where I show up. So you're trying to definitely, I do get some cards, but I'll tell you, sometimes when it comes to networking, I receive text messages. Even if you do have to use LinkedIn to say something to one of my colleagues, he had sent me a LinkedIn message, and it was different from everybody else. Just saying happy birthday. He recorded himself saying happy birthday. How many of those you get? Right? How many people do you have that you network with that you have their cell phone number and you can just text them? That builds relationships. And that's what we were talking about, the intimidation of meeting people, especially when they have, important names, they've done some great things, but they people just like you, right? And I think that's the hardest part, is how do you get through that barrier of seeing them as people as well, and not feeling like you have to take advantage of, their platform that they're on. And the truth is, if they don't want to help you, they heard what you got going on, they won't help. Right. They'll be like, well, you know what? That's good for you. Or they'll go, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you. Let me know what we can do.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Well, this is a great opportunity to have this networking that we're doing. I'm really enjoying all of this. Thank you. Dr. Kishima, my question deals with your property investments. Is that commercial property? Is that residential property? Can you talk a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, it's residential. So short term and long term. So that would be, a regular renter who needs somewhere to stay. So we have some properties doing that, and then recently we started dabbling in short term rentals, which actually has a higher profitability rate, but it also comes with more risk. Because when you got people problems. Right? And sometimes that can come off as a little bit more of an expense, and if you're not prepared for that, one of the things, so I come back to my partner, right? My husband. But my partner, he's always available. So when it comes to the short term, when I say always available for our clients, right? So when it comes to the short term rentals, that was the number one thing he had identified that he wanted to be great at. So if someone sends him a message, he's able to respond back within the hour. Usually he responds back within 10 or 20 minutes, right? But the goal is that, so if you send me something, I'm not gonna, gonna wait or sit on it just because. We had some very interesting situations that have occurred with some of the tenants. You always go through the stuff with long-term rentals where, you're gonna have to evict somebody, Fortunately now, that's what we go on the other side of things that I have. So I don't like to be told no, but I know how to say no to others. We've also had some, I want to say they were expensive, but not as expensive as it could have been, right? We had some work being done on one of our properties, and we got shipped. We decided to go with a small business owner who was, independently working, and he had worked for a different company. That's how we met. And he said, oh, okay, we can do all these things, or I can do all these things. I'll bring somebody in. We'll do da-da-da. It's gonna cost you about $8,000. Yeah. And then the price kept going up, and the work wasn't being done. But then he kept asking for money, because most of the time they ask for half down. That's not, untypical, right? So you go, okay, no problem. But in the contract it said, we will. I know I didn't have a chance to read it before. So my partner and I, we had that discussion, right? But in the contract it had said, and I could request for additional money as needed, right? And so he was saying, I need additional money because I need to get some rope to take down this tree. I need this and I need that. And now, I'm trying to trust in the process, which is hard sometimes to do. And I got to the point where I said, you know what? I just don't think this is working. And so my partner in this, right, says, well, how am I supposed to let him go? Let's just say by the end of this conversation, I had so much more respect for my husband. He says, now I understand why you get paid what you get paid. Mm-hmm. But I did it with honesty, and I made sure that person, when we let him go, that he still had his dignity intact. Now, about an hour later, when he realized what just happened, he called my husband and tried to get back on the contract, saying, hey, this is, I can't, my friend got cancer, all this other stuff. And I said, just leave him alone. He will eventually,
we pray for his friend.
Right, we believe that this person may have been heavily influenced by substances, and that may have. So the point is that investment properties can be a great investment, but you still need to have the time for it, having the resources for it, because if something happens, where are you gonna get that money from? So for the first 2 years, Kishima and Kenneth had to bankroll these things, because where did the money come from, right? Investment properties give you money over time,
not immediately.
And I want to wrap up with this statement here in terms of not only just investment properties and just business in general. Something I like to make sure that we convey to people. 2 things I'm gonna convey is that sometimes being in business is not doing the thing that you're in business doing. Mm-hmm. I meet with entrepreneurs all the time. Let's say the entrepreneur is a widget maker. He loves making widgets. Well, if your product and idea is a widget, then I need you to stay in that widget space. We need to now find you some collaborators, or find you some partners, or someone that can assist you do the things that you don't like to do, or you're not smart or competent in doing. There's a gentleman by the name of Ernesto Cerali. Ernesto Cerali is known to have produced over 50,000 businesses around the world. And what he did was he said, okay, you're an accountant and you're a logistics person. Okay, we're going to put you guys together as a firm, and you go do the thing. And that way, where one is weak, the other is strong, and you go and grow and do your business. I mentioned Les Brown 3 times. You owe me, Les Brown. But Les Brown talks about this baseball team that was down in the dumps. And this coach comes in, and tell this baseball team, tell the pitcher, what is it that you like to do? And the pitcher said, well, I got a curveball, I got a fastball, and I got a slider. And the coach said, no, what's the one thing that you know how to do and that defines you? He said, well, I got a hell of a fastball. He said, so what I want you to do in the off season, all I want you to do is practice on your fastball. Don't throw another slider, don't throw another curve. That team went to the World Series the following year because he only stayed with that one thing that he was good at. Entrepreneurs need to understand that if you are the widget maker, be the widget maker, but go build you a team that can help you. As Ernesto Cerali says, you can't do this by yourself. You can't do business alone. Go find you some collaborators. You don't necessarily have to be in contract with. I know that if I have women that are looking for services and goods and various things, I'm calling Kishima. Kishima, listen. I talked with a lady the other day that was asking me about assisted living facilities. Because I know so many people, I contacted someone and said, hey, listen, I got a client that's asking about assisted living facility. I don't want to be coming at her with all these crazy answers. Let's collaborate on this. Here's what I need you to be able to communicate and share with her. And the last thing I want to get across to you all as we wrap up is to monetize what you do. We often get to the point that we do, but we forget to monetize it.
What is your time worth?
Exactly. What's your time worth? What are you monetizing? And in your entrepreneurial space. So this young lady I called, and she didn't have she's like, but Daryl, I just love helping people. I was like, I want you to go to Duke Energy and take them a health check. Duke Energy ain't gonna accept it. So monetize that thing that you're doing and get you some collaborators. Get you some collaborators, some people that you can call up on and lean up on when it's time for you to do that thing. And that too is being in business.
And just to add something to that, remember, people are either taking something from you or giving something to you. And I'm talking about energy, I'm talking about knowledge, those type of things. So coming back to the tribe concept, be aware of the company that you keep. You will not take advice from a panhandler. So, as you are out in the world, maybe telling your story, sharing the things that you got going on, maybe not everybody is going to support you with those things. Are those the right people that you need? Or you going to need someone who's going to be honest with you, but still help you get to that yes? I think this is a great idea, this business that you're trying to do right now, Daryl, but I really think that maybe we should go back to that business plan. Let's tighten that up a little bit. If you have the right people that are in your circle, and if you have an understanding because you built a relationship with them and you have the right ask, right? Whether that be you're sometimes you do have to get a little bit brave and say, look, this is what I need. It will come back tenfold. Sometimes you won't have to go to anyone. There's that one thing that you should have in your pocket though. If you know the people who are around you, then you know what they do and you know what their strengths are. And the things that you cannot do yourself, you will have an ask.
Go to that draft board in your hand, which is your cell phone. Kishima, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you guys. Again, Entrepreneur Speaks was an idea that came out of a magazine I had in the Tampa. I had an entrepreneurship magazine called Tampa Pioneer, and we interviewed Tampa's entrepreneurs to tell their story. Well, I had to make a decision one year. It was either the magazine or milk. Well, milk, because the price of paper went sky high, and I was like, I can't keep paying for these print magazines and things like that. But I had a piece in the magazine that was called Entrepreneur Speaks, and I would allow entrepreneurs to write an article on a topic that they deemed they wanted to write a topic on. It didn't cost them anything. Just write. Here's the topic. Write the article. And so I wanted to maintain entrepreneur stories and tell them their stories. So Entrepreneur Speaks is in its third year. If you're interested and you want to come up and tell your story, just like you got up and shared your story, it doesn't cost you anything. Shoot us an email at d.hych@schweizerhych.com, which is d.hychzerhych.com. That's a lot.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, like you said, write it on the board maybe or something. So I was like, I'm not catching that at all.
Oh, Lord. But,
Yeah.
alright, y'all stop laughing. She don't like being told no, I don't like getting laughed.
That's not funny.
Because I was a little fat-faced kid in school, and I had a big head, and so everybody used to always crack jokes on me. So, no, I'm just joking.
We're laughing. We're not serious.
But honestly, if you're interested and you want to speak, we do this the first Thursday of every month at 3 o'clock. We used to do it in the evening, and we're playing around with our audience to see when people are available or not. If you can share the word, spread the word. If you want to come tell your story, we don't tell anyone no. We just put you on for the next day. It's typically 3 speakers, and we would love to have you guys come and tell your story or share it with someone. And if you don't want to do that, just come and support us. We would love to have your support. We ain't looking for an auditorium full of people, but if we got enough people in the room that we can compel and inspire, I think our job is done. Sound like a plan?
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys. Someone like finish.